Beneath the Vatican in Rome, there are 53 miles of shelving. Not filing cabinets, not digital servers, physical shelving, stretching through a network of underground repositories that most human beings will never be allowed to enter. The Vatican Apostolic Archive holds an estimated 35,000 volumes of cataloged documents, papal correspondence going back over 1,000 years, records of the Inquisition, the trial transcripts of the Knights Templar, correspondence between popes and emperors, documents recovered from Constantinople before it fell, texts that predate the Bible as we know it. Scholars can only apply for access, but here's the condition. You must already know the specific document you want to see. You can't browse the catalog freely. You can't explore. You submit a request for a named item and wait to see if it's approved. Think about what that means. The most comprehensive private archive in human history, and the only way to find something is to already know it exists. That's a very unusual way to store knowledge. But today we're going to go inside and ask the question, what is the Vatican actually keeping in there, and why? Let's start with what the Vatican tells us, because the official story is already extraordinary. The Vatican Apostolic Archive. It was called the Secret Archive until 2019, when the Vatican quietly renamed it, removing the word secret from the official title without much public explanation. It was formally established in 1612 by Pope Paul V, but the materials it contains go back much further. Some items in the collection date to the 8th century. Some are believed to be even older. The archive holds the official correspondence of the papacy going back over 1,000 years. Every major political negotiation the Vatican has been involved in. Every Inquisition trial record. The correspondence between Pope Pius XII and Adolf Hitler, a subject of enormous historical controversy that researchers have spent decades trying to fully access. The trial documents of Galileo, who was condemned by the Church for correctly stating that the Earth orbits the Sun. The proceedings of every major church council. The correspondence between popes and the kings, emperors and the rulers of every major civilization in the Western world for the past millennium. That alone, just the officially acknowledged contents, represents the most significant private historical archive on the planet. The idea that the most powerful religious and political institution in Western history kept detailed records of everything it did for thousands of years is not surprising. But what is surprising is that most of these records remain inaccessible to independent researchers. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Vatican didn't begin its existence in 1612. The Catholic Church has been the dominant institution in Western civilization for nearly 2,000 years, and for most of that time it was the dominant collector and controller of knowledge. When Rome converted to Christianity under Constantine in the 4th century, when the Church became the official religion of the most powerful empire in the world, it inherited something extraordinary: access to everything Rome had collected, everything Rome had conquered. Every text, every record, every piece of knowledge that the Roman Empire had accumulated across centuries of conquest stretching from Britain to Mesopotamia. Where did all that go? To truly understand what may be in the Vatican archive, you have to understand what happened in 312 AD, because that single year changed the nature of knowledge in the Western world more profoundly than almost any other event in history. Constantine the Great was the Roman emperor. He was not a Christian. He was a pragmatist who understood that the fastest growing religious movement in his empire, Christianity, could be a powerful tool of political unification. In 312 AD, before the Battle of Milvian Bridge, he reportedly had a vision and converted. Whether the conversion was genuine or strategic is debated by historians. What is not debated is what happened next. Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire. And with imperial power behind it, the Church gained something it had never had before: the authority and the resources to decide what was true. The Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, convened by Constantine himself, was the moment that authority was exercised the most dramatically. Bishops from across the Christian world gathered to determine the official doctrine of the Church. Which texts were authoritative? Which interpretations were correct? Which beliefs were heresy? The texts that didn't make the official cut were not simply set aside. They were ordered destroyed. Believers who held the rejected interpretations were persecuted. An enormous diversity of Christian thought, Gnostic Christianity, Jewish Christianity, the various gospel traditions that had developed across the Mediterranean world in the 3 centuries since Jesus, was systematically eliminated from the official record. But eliminated does not mean gone. The church that carried out this process was the same institution that controlled the archive, the same institution that had the resources and the motivation to preserve, secretly, the very text it was publicly ordering destroyed. Not out of contradiction, but out of the oldest institutional instinct in history. Knowledge is power. And the most powerful institution in the world does not destroy power. It stores it. What was collected, cataloged, and stored in 53 miles of shelving in the centuries after Constantine is a question that no outside researcher has ever been able to fully answer. Now let's get specific about what is documented to exist in the archive, because the confirmed contents alone tell a significant story. The Templar trial documents. In 1307, the Knights Templar, the most powerful military and financial organization in medieval Europe, was arrested on the orders of the French King Philip IV, who owed them an enormous debt that he couldn't repay. They were accused of heresy and various other crimes. Pope Clement V conducted the trial. The complete trial manuscripts, including the testimonies of the Templars themselves, are held in the Vatican Archive. In 2001, a portion of these documents was published for the first time. What they revealed was significant. The Chihon parchment. Discovered in the archive in 2001 by researcher Barbara Frail, showed that Pope Clement V had privately absolved Templar leadership of heresy while publicly condemning them. The Church knew they were not heretics. It condemned them anyway. The question researchers have been asking ever since is what else the Templar documents contain. The Templars spent nearly 2 centuries in Jerusalem during the Crusades. They had exclusive access to the Temple Mount, the most historically significant site in the world for 3 major religions. They're widely believed to have excavated extensively beneath it. What they found, if anything, and what happened to it, is one of the great unsolved questions of medieval history. And the complete record of their trial, including whatever they said under interrogation about what they discovered, is in the Vatican Archive. Then there are the Inquisition records. Centuries of proceedings against individuals accused of heresy. These records are significant not just for what they say about the Church's methods, but for what they reveal about what ordinary people across medieval Europe actually believed. Beliefs the Church found dangerous enough to prosecute. Alternative cosmologies, reports of encounters with beings that did not fit the official theological framework. Accounts of things seen in the sky. Most of these records have never been studied by independent researchers. Now we move on from the documented to the investigated. What researchers, historians, and investigators believe may exist in the sections of the archive that remain inaccessible. The most significant category is the pre-Bible texts. When Rome conquered the ancient world, it did not just collect territory, it collected knowledge. The Library of Alexandria, the greatest repository of ancient knowledge ever assembled, was burned. But not all at once, and not completely. Documents from Alexandria and other ancient centers of learning were acquired by Roman collectors over centuries. When the Church inherited Rome's collections, and when the Crusades gave it access to the ancient knowledge centers of the Middle East, the question of what arrived in Rome and what was never publicly disclosed becomes genuinely significant. Researchers in this field point to a specific category of interest. The pre-flood texts, documents that may predate the civilizations that we know about. Accounts of events from a period of human history that mainstream scholarship has not yet fully reconstructed. If such texts exist, and if the Vatican possesses them, their contents would not just challenge religious doctrine. They would challenge the entire model of human history that Western civilization has built on for 500 years. That's a significant motivation for an institution whose authority rests on that model remaining unchallenged. There's also the question of what was recovered in Constantinople. When the Byzantine Empire fell in 1453, an enormous quantity of ancient texts and documents, preserved in Constantinople's libraries for thousands of years, was at risk of destruction. The Vatican made significant efforts to acquire materials from Constantinople both before and after its fall. What arrived in Rome and what happened to it is not fully documented in the public record. And then there's the category that connects most directly to everything else on this channel: ancient astronomical and cosmological texts. That's a mouthful. Records of what the ancient world knew, or believed it knew, about the nature of the cosmos, about other forms of intelligence in the universe, about the true history of humanity's origins. If such records exist anywhere on Earth, they are most likely in those 53 miles of shelving beneath the Vatican. And here's the thing that I think matters most about everything that we covered today. The Vatican's control of knowledge is not a theory. It's a documented historical fact. The Council of Nicaea suppressed texts. The Inquisition prosecuted beliefs. The condemnation of Galileo attempted to suppress a scientific truth. The delayed release of the Templar documents concealed the Church's private absolution of men it publicly condemned. The Third Secret of Fatima was sealed for 83 years. The word secret was quietly removed from the archive's official name in 2019 with no public explanation. And these aren't conspiracy theories. They are a documented record of an institution making deliberate decisions across 2,000 years about what information the world is allowed to access. Every powerful institution controls information. This is not a moral judgment. It's a description of how power works. But the Vatican is unique in one respect. It has the oldest continuously operating institution in human history. It's been making these decisions about what to preserve, what to suppress, what to release, and when, for longer than any other organization on Earth. What that means is that there's most likely knowledge in those 53 miles of shelving that would fundamentally change how humanity understands its own history and its place in the cosmos. The Vatican has had 2,000 years to decide what to do with it, and it has not released it yet. In part 2, we're going to look at what the Vatican is actually searching for right now. Because it turns out that one of the most powerful religious institutions on Earth operates one of the most advanced astronomical observatories in the world. And the name they gave their most powerful instrument is one that nobody who hears it ever forgets. The Vatican Apostolic Archive is not a conspiracy theory. It's a real place with real documents, and a real access policy that has kept independent researchers from fully examining its contents for 400 years. The question this series is asking is not whether the Vatican is evil. It's not whether the Catholic Church has done good in the world. It has, enormously, across 2,000 years of history. The question is simpler than that, and I think maybe more important. An institution that has been the dominant force in Western civilization for 2,000 years, that has controlled what texts were preserved and what were destroyed, what beliefs were permitted and what were prosecuted, what knowledge was released and what was stored in 53 miles of underground shelving. That institution knows things. The question is what? Part 2 is coming very soon. Subscribe so you don't miss that and drop a comment below. If the Vatican opened the archive tomorrow and released everything, what do you think we would find? As always, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share all that good stuff. It really helps me out. Until next time, I'll talk to you later.